Welcome back to Breakfast with Bobby, everybody. How's everyone doing today? It's a bright, beautiful day out there, and we are just getting rolling on the spring allergies as we speak. So, anyway, how are you doing, Bobby?
I'm great. Honestly, I'm great today. I was great yesterday with the sunshine. Like you said, the allergies are everywhere and there's things
Yeah.
budding and brewing and blowing and everything is just happening. So, hey, I
Yeah.
am so happy and I am so honored that our guest today
Matt Schmidt.
actually, right.
Yeah.
If people
I'm
know who he is,
excited. I'm
oh my
excited because
God.
we've been Facebook friends literally for years, and this
Yeah.
is the first time we've met face to face. So,
Well,
yeah.
honestly, we're in a class together, and I asked him about it, and I said, I asked you a while ago, and you said, yeah, I might maybe want to do that, and I'm like, that doesn't sound very positive, so I think I'll just wait with that. So, welcome to our show, Matt Schmidt. I hear you're a scientist. I want you to talk about that. You're an expert in quantum healing. I've seen you around in. You live up north, right? You live in Green Bay?
Yeah, in Green Bay.
Yeah. What do you do in Clintonville? Why does that sound familiar to me?
I'm all over the place. I do events all over the world, really, but all over the country and
Cool.
the state. So, you know,
So, quantum healing, hypnotherapy, is it the same? Different?
there's aspects of like hypnotherapy, I guess, in the quantum healing. I don't even know what I do anymore because it's kind of a mashup of everything that I've been learning, even the stuff that Bobby and I are going through together. I mean, I'm incorporating some of the tools there, and it's just this mashup, this hodgepodge of everything that I've kind of learned. But it started out in like past life regression, and that was kind of like learning using that as kind of a healing modality. But it's evolved into whatever I do now. So, but basically, the quantum part of it is kind of tapping into the field of possibilities. So from that, we can really can help you to like access like any version of you that you want. So in quantum theory, there's like an infinite number of versions of you that exist simultaneously, and the one that you're currently experiencing is the one that you're the vibration of or the frequency of. So I like to use a simple analogy with this because that's kind of a little convoluted, but in the same way that all the radio stations are playing right now, you can't hear them. They're all playing, but you can't hear them until you're dialed into a certain frequency. Okay, so when you shift the station, you can align with a different frequency, experience a different radio station. So in simplest terms, I help people figure out what's keeping them stuck on one channel, and then align the kind of free them up so they can align with one that's more desirable or
I
one they.
like that explanation. That is a really easy to understand explanation.
Oh, because it could get really mathy, and I could I lose myself in some of it. But like in
You
simplest terms,
definitely lose me today, especially. You would definitely lose me. So
Yeah.
I like the simplicity. That's awesome.
so yeah, it's usually kind of figuring out what's keeping people stuck where they're at, and then kind of freeing them up to experience something different. And I keep looking for something better than what I'm doing, and I haven't found it yet. I have different parts of things that I add into this that like amplify the work that I'm doing with people. But for me, like at least the first time I went through a process like this, I met someone down in Oshkosh, and it felt like 10 years of therapy in one day. And I'm like, why aren't people doing this? I was on
Yeah.
14 medications before I saw this lady. I was having grand mal seizures every week. I was like feeling stuck in life. I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night. Just really just drained, exhausted. And like in one session, like I immediately stopped having seizures that day. It's been like 6 years now. I got off all 14 medications in 2 months. I was on some of these medications for 25 years. And
Wow.
as a side effect, I started sleeping every single night. I also lost like 60 pounds in 2 months just from all the stuff my mind was hanging on to. And, and then that's where I found out I was supposed to be doing this work. And I'm like, that is not right. There's no way. I cannot picture myself sitting here listening to people's problems. Like, I was like, because I'm a scientist and I'm this and I'm, you have this idea of who you think you are. And so, and then even just coming from that scientific background, and we were talking about this before we started, you get so caught up in a certain belief system or way of thinking that it's hard to accept anything else or even entertain anything else. And then I kind of got stuck in this, I don't know, just kind of these thoughts of like, when did I stop questioning stuff? Like, isn't that what science is? But I knew better than everyone, and if you didn't believe me, just ask me. I made you cry with everything I knew. Don't you know how things work? I would have made fun of you a couple years ago, like because I knew everything. So that was probably the hardest part, is just taking a step back, admitting, hey, you don't know everything, and then that was actually what pushed me to even entertain some of these other things and start looking for answers in other places. So basically, it was like 10 years of being stuck. It wasn't like I woke up one day, I'm like, oh, I should do this. It was like just hitting wall after wall after wall, and then finally just gave up. But I think they call it surrender. But for me,
that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it felt like giving up. Like I threw in the towel. I'm like, you know what, I'm done. And apparently I'm very determined or stubborn, however you want to look at it. And it took me a while to...
Tenacious.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the word we're going to use. Tenacious.
Tenacious. So I'm just using that in a different direction, and kind of following where I'm being led. But it took a while to get there. Had to get kind of dragged to do this, but I can't imagine doing anything else now. I mean, this is like the best job in the world. You don't even call it a job because I go on vacation. I can't wait to get back to work. It's a good problem to have.
So do you go to people's houses or do they come to your office?
Yes and yes. So I do travel to people, especially like medical ones. I get a lot of medical cases just because of my medical background. I think I have like a sign above my head, with people just, I can be that bridge for people because I understand both sides of it. And what I love about the work that I do now is it doesn't detract from anything I know medically, scientifically. It just adds another lens. So a lot of these things you're not going to get to the answer because you're only seeing it from one level. When you can get to the why behind everything, then real stuff really starts to move. And I've seen things I'd never even thought were possible since I started doing this. So with those ones, I do travel to people, especially if they can't leave the house or if they're, maybe in the hospital. I've done sessions with people there. I work out of my home office in Deep Pier, and then I do work remotely all over the world. So it doesn't matter where my voice comes from. Each person's doing their own healing, and I'm just like the guide in the process. So basically hold their hand and guide them through stuff. And I would love to take credit for some of the results, but at the end of the day, it's not me what a person does with that. I can only get so far. But
so how deep do they go? Obviously, when you're going through the hypnotherapy type of thing, you take them into a meditative state, an altered state kind of thing. How long does this whole process take?
I don't know. It takes as long as it takes. Kids are a lot shorter. If you have like 60 years of baggage, of course, it's going to take a lot longer. Most of the time that I'm working with a person in a state of trance is, I don't know, a couple hours, 2-3 hours, pretty average. The whole process, maybe 4 to 6 hours I spend with a person because we're going through all the layers of stuff. And like if you have a fear of change, guess what? Everything that we're doing is change. So that one thing is going to hold you back from getting the results you want because that's overriding everything. So I want people to be successful in this. I'm looking for them to get the results that they want. So I take the time that it takes with that. So,
well, I would imagine that your being intuitive kind of assists the entire process forward.
A little bit. It helps me to kind of ask better questions. That's really the art of doing this. I don't even use the H word anymore because people have expectations of what that is. Since I stopped using the word hypnosis, everyone can do this and everyone does way better. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a relaxed state. Every single person can do this, even though it's the exact same thing. But when I stopped using that word, everyone gets better results.
Yeah, I get that. I was doing hypnosis long before I got certified in it and calling it guided meditation.
Sure, yeah. We're just a state of relaxation. And because I've had people get done when I'm like, oh, I learned hypnosis, and I was like trying to do it with people, and I remember one lady got done. She's like, well, that didn't work. I was aware you were talking to me. I'm like, good. I don't want you blacked out. And but she'll create that scenario because that's how powerful we are.
Hmm.
She'll undo everything we just did because of that belief. This didn't work because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And you'll create that. So I had no idea how powerful our minds were until I started doing this work. Like it blows my mind
Yeah.
how powerful our words are. I have people, there's nothing wrong with them. They believe that they have something and they create the full everything. And they're fully experiencing it. They're like going through like whatever it is they think they have, and
Yeah.
we just unbelieve it and it goes away. And I'm like, what? Like that blows my mind.
You know, several hundred years ago or so, I saw a movie and it was about the Christ, being crucified and all of that. And there was a person in the background of this movie that thought that she embodied Christ so much that she actually went through the same symptoms and had blood on her hands, like she had gone through the crucifixion and stuff. That was all in her head. That had nothing to do with the fact that, she was watching it on camera or whatever and seeing that. So you're right. Our minds are incredibly powerful, more powerful than we can even imagine. And I think most of the time we're just really afraid of our own success and whatever else we can actually do with our own belief system. And just think about how that would look if we had people behind us all the time to support us and to help catapult us into that great success.
Hmm.
Even when I was in a medical role, I mean, look at the placebo effect. That
Yeah.
works in
Yes.
almost 70% of the cases in some instances, even like rare forms of cancer that like people don't come back from. I think the lowest one that in the study that I read was like 8% of people received a benefit from a placebo. And it's like, how is that even possible? Like they thought they were getting something. So I worked in cancer, developing drugs for chemotherapeutic agents, and I remember there's a study that was done. This is probably back in like the 80s, I think. And one of the drugs that they gave was like when they do a test, they give a placebo and then they give like the drug. And the drug wasn't that impressive, but the placebo group, 30% of the people lost their hair because they thought they were getting a chemo drug and they
Oh,
weren't getting anything.
Yeah.
Like that blows my mind how powerful we are. So if you can use that to your advantage, I mean, it's just crazy. Sometimes too, like when I'm working with people, they'll be telling me like that the toxicity they're experiencing is because they think something's toxic. And that's the only reason that it's having an effect on their body. So people read all this stuff online and, oh, this is bad for you and this is bad for you. And maybe it is, but it's not as bad as them believing that it's bad for them.
sure.
Kind of convinced that you could pretty much like consume arsenic if you thought it was good for you and be fine, like because that's how powerful we are. So,
Hmm. So what about toxic relationships then? How does that work with what you do?
um, a lot of times there's a reason that people have that relationship, just like a relationship with anything. Um, People say that like people are often a mirror for each other, but I kind of see it more like almost like puzzle pieces. Like this person's complimenting you in this way, and there's always a relationship there. There's a reason that you attract a certain type of person because of maybe how you're brought up, or maybe what you witness as a kid for a relationship with your parents, or just a number of reasons. And I'm sure you know people like this too. They're on their like sixth husband, but it's the same guy.
Right. He looks
It's
good at
because
first.
you're unconsciously playing out that same pattern. So when we
Right.
can figure out, well, what did you need to learn from this? Well, why you keep doing this? You can move away. You can find a different guy. You're going to end up in the same situation until you actually figure out why that's happening in the first place and why you're kind of a match for that type of person. And when you can, just like a grade in school, once you learn what you need to in third grade, you don't have to go back through third grade. You can move on to something better. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I see them as like teachers. I see them as opportunities. Okay, why did this person come into your life? What are they here to teach you? What was this experience showing you about what maybe it could even be by contrast. It could be horrible. It could be teaching you what you don't want.
Mm.
Sometimes those are the lessons there.
Been
So,
there, done that. Yeah. Yeah,
and even
definitely.
Even some people think that they picked the wrong person because they had this really, I don't know, kind of like fire and ice relationship.
Mm.
And but that was also they also find out often that that was very purposeful to push their soul to grow. It was maybe triggering them in certain ways to bring certain things to the surface so their soul could grow, and then they could heal. So it's easy when stuff is all like sunshine and rainbows, but when it gets crunchy, then you become aware of the stuff that's really affecting you under the surface.
But
So
is there
Right.
really any long-term relationship that's all sunshine and rainbows? I mean, I think we come together to bring those things out in us that we need to address, that we need to learn, that we need to what's the word? Resolve, I guess. You
Mm.
know, and isn't that the purpose of relationships?
sure, and I was just saying like some of those are a little bit more volatile than others.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know, been there, but and I appreciate the calm relationship I have now, but still, we still bring out things in each other that we both need to process or that we both need to address or learn or whatever. And I think that, just because there's difficulty in a relationship doesn't necessarily mean it's toxic. It
Sure.
it really depends on the nature of the relationship.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you're not in a relationship like that, like, I mean, if you're stagnant, that's not good either. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
like, oh, we're
Yeah.
fine. Like, that's not really living either. So I think that a good partner does help you to become the best version of you,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah,
a
I agree.
good person also supports you as you're going through that. So,
Exactly.
they're,
Mm.
Exactly. It's not all conflict. Right.
yeah. I feel like sometimes we're going up the mountain, I'm pulling her along and she's pulling me along in different parts, and and that's
Yeah.
kind of the push pull of a good relationship, and they're kind of growing together in that way. And I think that kind of is like a spiritual practice. I mean, you can
Mhm.
turn that relationship into
Well, you
your
Yeah.
are a team.
yeah,
Should in the team when one is a little less capable, the other one takes over and shows the strength and does the dragging, so to
Yeah.
speak, and then the other one gets to rest, and then you swap places every now and again to keep going up the hill.
Yeah,
what I
absolutely.
So go
what I
ahead.
see with some of this stuff too is like the things become like toxic when people, they're getting like a resistance in this relationship, and they're a lot of times they're like trying to stay in that just because it's familiar, it's comfortable, but like their souls are being nudged apart and they're like just not getting the message. A lot of times one person will start cheating, or like the actions will say stuff other than what their words are saying. And they're like, how
Mhm.
do we get here? And it's like, yeah, because you guys were done a while ago, and
And you just didn't leave.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you weren't actually taking the steps. So now it's
Yeah.
gonna get less and less pleasant until you actually take the steps. So it's the
Yeah.
way of the universe kind of nudging you to like keep growing and keep going. So
Isn't that what they call a quickening? Is that a quickening or am I using the wrong word?
I'm not sure.
I don't know that one.
Oh, okay. Um, priming. How about that? Isn't that what they call priming? When you get into a situation where things are being shown to you and now you have to make a move. Things start to accelerate, they go fast. All of a sudden you're plunked in this situation that now you have to do something about. I think that's called, at least in another, thing that I'm learning.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I can see that too, in like even in like a career or something. It doesn't have to be a relationship, like
Hmm.
it, be like, oh, why did all this stuff get bad at work? And this person's doing this, and this person's doing this, and it's like, yeah, you've kind of outgrown that, and it's trying to get
Time
you
to
to
go.
make it uncomfortable. You don't want to
Yeah.
get hit by a semi to get you out of there. You can take the gentle nudges. So,
Yeah, I'm really done with the 2x4 method. I'm done with it. And I
so
encourage other people to be done with the 2x4 method. There are
yeah,
more gentle ways to learn.
yeah, I think we've had 2x4s and 2x6s and
Four
a
by
lot of ways to
eights.
4x8s, yeah, a big post handle, all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so so when you found this for your health, Matt, um, how did it take only one session for you to get to that, or did you have multiple?
the things that we just talked about, that was from one session. And then other stuff, I was still working on. We were talking about my vision before this. Like,
Yeah.
that's been 7 years of working through the layers of some of that stuff. And it doesn't bother me that much, but it's also like an area that obviously there's something there. So I keep working on the things that are driving that. So in my first session, they told me it was because I didn't see myself as good enough. And I was like, okay, I get that. I was like, okay, so I've been doing this work, and then I kind of checked in a couple years later. I'm like, why isn't this improving? I've been doing all this work, and I've been like focusing on like, focusing on like that issue and where it came and from and originated. And then so I asked about it, and in this work where I'm communicating through it, I call my higher self, and the higher self is being like kind of channeled through the client's voice. So this is my higher self said, well, you don't see yourself as a good enough partner. You don't see yourself as a good enough father. You don't see yourself as financially good enough. You don't see yourself as a good enough healer. You don't. I'm like, fine, all right. I got work to do. I got it. Surprised I can see it all. No, I didn't mean that. So yeah, I've been kind of like chipping away at that, and it's funny how like these things come back around, because I was doing all this like self-improvement work, and I was like doing all these meditations and stuff like that, and then I heard it's like, you're doing all this because you still don't feel like you're good enough, and I'm like, dang it. It's like,
right.
the same thing repackaged. Just because it's self-improvement work doesn't mean it's not the same pattern. So
I had a session, a QHHT session with someone about my vision. And what came up was that there were things in my life I didn't want to see, particularly in childhood. So that was a real, excuse the expression, eye-opener for me to be able to look at that and go, yeah, there were a lot of things I didn't want to see in my childhood. There were a lot of things I didn't want to see in my adulthood. So it came through the eyes, right? Like, so it's crazy. I still can't go without glasses, but my vision is improved. So I same kind of similar journey with different, yeah.
So what are the steps then? You recognize that you have an issue. You recognize what the issue is and why it's there. Then what? Do you have to work in addition to that? Is there more, or just your knowing? Does that take care of start of the healing?
There's different levels of healing. Sometimes people are already done with whatever their body was trying to tell them. So just their awareness, like, yep, you're done with this, so it can go. Like, and sometimes just asking for it. Sometimes it's as easy as asking. And even since like time is not linear, just the intention of wanting to heal can be all it takes. I've had people call me to make an appointment. They hang up the phone, and the symptoms they had for 10 years go away when they hang up the phone. And they're like, what did you do? And I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like, you finally took the action step that they wanted you to take, and you didn't need this anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes this stuff is instant like that. Other times there's layers of stuff, like with the vision that we were just talking about. And I've been going through the different parts of that, but it was something that was pretty baked in so early on that it's just taken a while. So. But usually it's coming to the awareness, your body's trying to get your attention. The kind of physical 2x4, it's like, hey, you're not paying attention to this. So it's telling you things are out of balance, things that need to be addressed within your life. And if you don't have that, kind of catalyst to push you to explore these things, you would probably never do it. So the physical thing kind of gets people in the door to, hey, what's going on here? And once you figure out what that's from, you resolve it, then a lot of times you just don't need the physical reminder. So,
yeah, makes sense.
I find that all very intriguing.
It is. And when you get into some of the things that I've seen just like blow my mind. I've had people regrow body parts. I've had people move their bones back into place 20 years after an accident, like getting hit by a car, like their bones all move back into place. One lady that came to one of the workshops I did, she had metal pins and screws put in her arm like 20 years ago where she injured it. And a week after, she wanted to focus on her arm during the class. And then like a week after the class, she ended up pulling her bicep. When her arm x-rayed, all the metal pins and screws were gone and the bone was healed. I'm like, what? like, like in my
Like,
mind,
where'd
that's
they
like physically
go?
impossible because it's
Wait,
medical
where'd they
grade.
go?
Right.
Yeah. So back
Right.
to our original
Okay.
analogy, she shifted to a version of her that was never even injured in the first place.
I
Like
love
everything
that.
is way slipperier than it is.
Okay.
I've worked with people with that
So once
to
you know, here's
yeah,
how flex it is.
to but with an emotional stuff, with emotional stuff, like taking people back to before whatever the traumatic event was, and all of a sudden they're like it never happened. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Isn't that
It
cool?
just, yeah, that
Like
is
I have a
cool.
hard
I
time
just,
wrapping my mind around the time part,
Very
yeah,
much. It's hard to wrap your
yeah.
head around that. So
But if
then,
people
so
can,
yeah,
it's very
basically, I think with
healing.
the emotional stuff, that emotional stuff translates a lot of times into physical stuff. So I mean, we can
Yeah,
it's essentially doing like the same type of thing.
it is.
Um,
It is. Yeah, I have not seen it as much in the physical as I have in the emotional. So I'm really intrigued by what you're saying about that. That's
I
really
had to get over
interesting.
a lot of my beliefs about this in order to have people start experiencing like the physical change.
Mhm.
That's why I think I needed such a profound shift was to like really solidify like yes, this is possible. Because I have other people that do the exact same work. I helped like teach them stuff. One lady, she's in the Netherlands, but she's a doctor, and she's like, she's like, well, I've done this. I've done like 60 sessions with people, and I've never had anyone get any physical healing. But I don't think it can work for that either. And I'm like, well, there's your answer. Like the beliefs that you're
Yeah,
carrying, like you just pass
yeah,
those on to your client. So I think that's why I was kind of given this strategically given these like physical things for me to like observe within myself and like really put my trust in this work because if I didn't believe it, they're not going to get that type of healing from it. So
right.
right.
still stuff still blows my mind though. Like like one lady she had her thyroid removed and 2 months later it was back. Like she had a complete thyroidectomy and in the session they're like, yeah, I'll just grow a new one. I'm like, what? I'm like, it's gonna grow a new one. Okay. And then 2 months later it was back and producing all the normal hormones and everything. So
Well, darn it all, I got to do that now.
uh,
Holy cow.
But you're right.
So
It
what
really is a
I'm,
belief. I'm sorry, Bobby. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's okay. That's exactly where I was going. So what I'm learning, and like you mentioned before, you have done a number of classes and you keep getting education and you keep trying things and you explore this and try that. And it's really your belief system and what you tell your mind and you thoroughly believe it, it is so.
mhm.
Mhm.
So it's all in your head is really the bottom line to all of it, right?
A lot of it, and I think a lot of it too that a lot of people don't talk about. They think they need to learn another technique or another modality. Or the biggest shifts I've noticed for my clients was me working on myself. Like,
Yep.
it sounds a little backwards, but like, and a
Bingo.
lot of
Yep.
healers
Yep.
skip over that, especially if they're like, "Oh, here, let me save you," or "Let me do this for you." You know, they don't focus on themselves a lot of times, and um, I don't know. I've noticed when I do that, like everything ramps up, you know, even going through the shamanic program that we are now, I've noticed these like big jumps in stuff as we're just working on our own stuff. So,
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
And then to help people with their past lives and all of that, that's really powerful. I learned some stuff too. By the way, Christina is a native shaman, and
Yeah.
so she comes by all of this naturally. And just so you are aware, she,
You know what? No,
she
no, no,
laughs.
no. I like what Amy's doing. Okay. I will say I like what Amy's doing. She's very respectful about it and she's very clear about where her information comes from. It's these 2-day online programs and boom, you're a shaman. No, you're not. No, you're not. You might have a certificate that says that you completed a few classes or,
I
like
have
a
the
2 day.
certificate.
It says
Yeah.
I am.
But that's the difference because I know roughly what Amy does and
Yeah.
I like the way she does it. She's respectful, she's learned her stuff, she's very clear about it. It's those like online 2-week programs or 2-day programs that people were taking during COVID and then all of a sudden everybody's a shaman. You
Mm,
don't even know what that means in 2 days,
No.
right.
you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And
There's
even what we're getting, I just feel like it's the activation part to
Yeah,
get us started. You know, like, does that make you,
pretty
are you a
much.
shaman?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
That's a
I don't think,
lifetime thing. That's a lifetime thing. And most Native American healers don't even call themselves shaman. So,
no.
Hmm.
I was fighting that for a while. The calling was so loud to like go through that program, but like my partner does that, so I was like, well, that's her thing, you know. And it's like I was fighting it for years, and then finally it just like it's just so natural going to it because I'm like, wow, finally I have someone teaching me this stuff that like I've been trying to do with people not knowing what I'm doing. I still feel
yeah.
like a caveman playing with fire half the day is like, oh, what does this do?
I feel like that a lot too, believe me.
Well, you know, Christina knows. She actually was my master teacher. We started out in Reiki and all of that. And honestly, I never, that was not anything that was on my plate that I wanted to do. But I had a
Mhm.
friend that did it, and all of a sudden they're talking about it. And I'm like, well, I think I probably need to do this so that I know what you're talking about and so that I can learn some of it. Well, then I just kept going and going. I've had a million. My certification list is a gazillion pages. And so you're right. You get to a point where you don't know it, or you think that you're not good enough, and you think that you need one more class. And that's kind of where I was. But in addition to that, I've gotten to the point with many, many things happening in my life with relationships and things being stirred up so much so that I thought that if I learned how to some of the tools for the from the shamanic classes and stuff, that I would be able to take care of that. So basically what I was doing most of the time was trying to heal myself and outwardly healing other people because they were asking me to help. So it's such a complex thing, and the temperature and the volume, if you don't listen, turns up so loud and makes you so uncomfortable that you have to do it. And that's where I am.
Yep, exactly.
And
But,
all those
but then
years,
you go back to what Matt said earlier. If you're working on yourself and you're healing yourself, your clients have better results.
yeah,
Mhm.
every one of my customers, every one of my
Mhm.
clients fell asleep on the table, every one of them. And even now that I'm practicing what I'm practicing in the shamanic practitioner stuff, they still fall asleep. And I'm thinking, you're supposed to be paying attention. this is this is not a nap time.
But for them, maybe that's how they receive healing because it removes their resistance.
Sure. Those are
Yeah.
some of the best results when they're completely out of the way. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
time to go. Because
Yep.
I'm like, it's go time. I used to try to pull people out of that and realize I was totally just wrecking the process by like trying to control it because like they're right where they need to be.
Yeah.
Well,
You
thank you
can
for
really
that
move
learning
people up.
opportunity. My
You're
God.
welcome. If people are falling asleep, that means that their resistance is out of the way and they're receiving more of what they need to receive.
And
A
that's
lot of
why I
times
do
I'll
these
have that when
things.
there's like structural work being done too. Like I'll hear their bones popping back into place, or like especially with like back things, or and they'll be completely out because it's like, okay, we need to do some heavy lifting here, so bye bye, and they just like gone. And their consciousness kind of checks out, so we can move through stuff and
I love that. I love
yeah.
that.
This is very, very intense. I just love that whole process. And you do so much more than just the QHHT stuff, right?
Kind of by default, I've had to learn like, um, I didn't want to do any of, I got dragged to do all these things. Thinking back on this, I'm like, I didn't pick this. I don't know if anyone would pick this. Like, oh, I think I'll do this to make money. No, it's like, no, it's a soul calling, you know? It's like, it's a warrior being like pulled.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then you get presented with certain things, and I'm like, I don't want to learn this. And it's like, then you get blasted time and time again. And like one of the more recent ones is doing some of this like entity work, and I just say like interfering energies, but
Hmm.
it was
Yeah.
blocking all these things. And I try to like connect to a person's higher self. Well, if you have this interference, you get stuff that's not very higher selfy. Like
Mhm.
the one that pushed me to do this was I was working with a lady, and this is all stuff that people said I could share, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to like her higher self. I'm like, so what does she need to do for this to heal? And they're like, just kill herself. She needs to die. And I'm like, what? I'm guessing that's not the right answer.
And not the higher self. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I own
Yeah.
her and I'm not going anywhere. Like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know what to do. So that pushed me down this whole, like, I'm like, I need to figure out how to help people. I need to understand this in order to be able to get people what they need. So that pushed me into this whole, like, area that I didn't want to do. But it's been so rewarding now and so profound. And if it's done with this from a loving and compassionate place, it's a
Yeah.
win-win for everyone. I've had some of these souls come back around through like mediumship reading and say how healing it was for them to be able to move on and thanking me. And I'm like, never thought that was part of it because you're focused on the person in front of you and like, oh, this thing's in the way and it's like doing this to you. It's like, no, it's not. This is someone's grandma. This is like, and like a lot of times, and I think if I was that soul, when I want to be treated with that same like loving compassion, here's someone that's lost. They're stuck here. Maybe they're afraid of being judged on the other side, or they kind of lost their way, and you get a chance to guide them home. Like, how beautiful is that? And then your client gets back to themselves. And I'm like, it's such rewarding work that I never thought I'd be doing.
Yeah.
And
But when
and the
it's
key,
brought to you and
yeah,
you're in that situation, I mean, I don't know about you, but I just look up and go, help. You
yeah,
ask my guides to step in and guide me on something because you can't just go, oh, wait a minute, I need to go take a class so I can help you with this. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to deal with it in the moment. And I think that's where the whole intuitive piece comes in.
yeah, and
Just
asking.
and
Like,
asking.
like you're
Just
not doing
ask.
it alone. You're not the like
Yeah.
my ego wanted to be in charge a lot, and like, oh, I'm the one doing this, and like the more I do
Uh-uh.
this, I'm like, how much am I actually doing? Like, other than being
You're just
the
like
person sitting here.
facilitating energy movement. That's all you're doing. Like,
I'm the one writing notes and hitting record, but that's about it.
yeah,
Like,
pretty much. Yeah. Same. Same. Yeah. Because it's like you're in that situation, you have to deal with it in that situation, in that moment. So you ask for help. Even if you don't know who you're asking for help. At least I
Right.
am. I can't speak for
yeah,
you, but for me, that's what I have to do. So, yeah, I mean, I could take all the classes in the world, but it's still not going to help me if I'm in the situation I have not been trained for.
yeah.
That's where you have to just go, you brought me here, guide me through it. you know?
So how did you learn how to deal with all those entities?
A lot of help from a lot of other people. I got a lot of help from Amy how to do this in different ways because you talk to people in other parts of the country and other parts of the world and even like around here, and some people love the drama. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you have to chop their heads off and banish them to the underworld." I'm like, "Dude, I'm pretty sure we can just talk to them." Like,
Yes.
like,
Yes. Thank you.
like this is someone that attached to them in the hospital that was lost. I'm pretty sure that they don't need to like
Yeah.
Oh boy.
cut up into pieces and do whatever. Like, oh, it's a demon that's attacking them. Like, not really, because you can get their whole backstory. You can get why they're there, and like I don't
Yep.
know. And just like the real world, there's a relationship there. Like
Yeah.
they're drawn to that person for a reason. And a lot of times, what I find that's really interesting is the client that I'm working with is holding on to them stronger than, and they're like, I'm trying to leave, but they won't let me go. And
Almost
I'm,
always.
I know.
Almost always.
I didn't
Yes,
know
I
that
have
wasn't
found
a big
that to
part
be
of
the case. Yeah. I
it.
have found that out too. Trial and error. I found that out. The humans are holding on much harder than the spirits are because the spirits are like, I see paradise, let me go. you know, but the humans are just holding on because I don't know, maybe it's the drama thing.
When I asked it, and they're like, well, I don't know who I'll be without them. I'm afraid to be alone. Or, like, there's always a reason.
Yeah.
And I even when I kind of went through this, I had one that was attached very early on. I got really sad. I felt like part of me died because I thought that was me, like because it had been
Oh,
there for so long
Yeah.
that it was almost like a grief or a sad, like an echo of sadness because I felt like part of me left.
Yeah,
hmm.
absolutely. Yeah.
So then you have to go through the process of loss and grief.
I did, and they kind of resolved over. I mean, it was just I just had to like feel those feelings and just I don't
Hmm.
know, lasted like maybe a day or two, and
Hmm.
even though intellectually I knew it wasn't supposed to be there, I still felt
Yeah,
the way I felt. So that
right.
was a very
Yeah.
interesting
I
feeling.
agree. Yeah.
But yeah, they don't have an agenda. They're not like most of them aren't like they aren't attacking you, and it's like, and there's always a relationship. There's something that allowed that to come in, and if you're
Yeah.
in a fully healed state, really nothing can stick to you. I mean, it can show up and hang out, but it really can't affect you in the way that. So there's always like some chink in your arm or some wound or something that is attached to or some, and when you can address that and actually heal that core wound, nothing else can really take its place then. So to learn to
So
be
it's
kind of
all
more
about,
complete in the process rather than just like, oh, get rid of it. Okay, well now it just goes attached to someone else. You didn't
right.
do the full job. And then even if you got rid of it, like I talked to someone, they're like, oh, I do an entity clearing every day. Don't you wonder why you need to do that? Like,
Oh,
I'm like, that's not something you should do every day, but they weren't addressing what was attracting those in the first place. So
Yeah.
it would leave and come back, leave, come back. It's like, okay, well, at what point are you going to realize that this isn't going anywhere?
Okay, can we talk about the addiction to healing now that you brought that up?
okay.
Sure.
Yeah, because I hear people who have been, oh, I've been healing and healing and healing for years. I'm like, when are you going to be healed? I mean, at some point, isn't that the goal? To be healed from something like you said, if you're fully healed. But I know so many people who are like, oh, we're never fully healed. We're never fully healed. I'm like, are you confusing healing and growing? Because it's not necessarily the same thing. you know I mean, I want your take on it, but that's my take on it. So like, I know people who are just like stuck in this healing, 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 like hamster wheel, but they never get healed. Can you
Yeah.
address that? What is your feeling on that?
Um, I think like, I mean, if I'm still having physical issues, obviously there's something within me that I
Right.
need to address. And not like physical things like, oh, I don't like the size of my earlobes, or like or something like
Yeah.
that. Something's
Yeah.
off balance. There's something that I take that as okay, something I need to address. Um, and I think I don't know. I've been through a lot of like the healing stuff myself, and I've been kind of at that point. I'm like, how much more do I need to do? Even when I'm going through some of the shamanic stuff, I'm like, I've done a lot of this. And I'm not to like sound cocky, but because there's always like every time I get
Right.
cocky like that, and I'm like, oh, I'm in a good spot now. It's like, hey, you never dealt with this, and hey, what about this? And
Right. Right.
so there's
But
some
I mean,
like not
like
over
people
pieces,
working
but
on one issue forever and ever and ever, it's almost like you're picking the scab. Consider something healed and move on to the next thing, I think is what I'm trying to say.
and
Yeah.
I think some of the healing things keep people stuck. And I
Yeah.
actually just saw something about this recently, and it really resonated. Um, Even with like talk therapy, it's like they're actually putting energy into the original problem, and that's actually causing more and more depression. Like there's good therapy and there's good like techniques, but then there's like ruminating on the same thing. Like
Yeah.
this is how I felt, and I'm like going to therapy, I'm like, we'd rip the band-aids off, put them back on, and like, oh, come back next week or we'll do the same thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I know the right answers. I don't feel better. I'm like, what's going on? Like, shouldn't I be feeling better? Like, just keep
Yeah.
coming back. And like,
Right.
Yeah.
and it wasn't getting anywhere. And it wasn't until I actually did the quantum healing, the QHHT, that really catalyzed that healing process.
Yeah.
So I think it's the way people go about it. And what I see too is like sometimes things hit differently. So this spiritual healing, like you mentioned your shamanic background and stuff, and even the shamanic program that Bobby and I are in now, it's more of that spiritual level healing. So,
Right.
and you also mentioned Reiki. This is a good example. So I do Reiki too, but I've was seeing the same people for the same thing because the energy would go out and they didn't address why that was happening. Energy would come back, and like any physical
Yeah.
therapist will tell you this
Yeah.
too. They'll see the same person for the same thing because they're only addressing the physical level, not, well, what's recreating this. And so they just,
Exactly.
so I think
Exactly.
people get stuck in these things like, oh, I need to go see this person for body work. I need to see this person for energy work. And it's like, when you figure out why that keeps happening, then the healing can occur on that core level.
Hmm.
And that's what I kind of see with like some of the shamanic stuff. And a lot of parallels between shamanic and like this QHHT world. It's just
Right.
different
Right.
lens. But you're getting to the root of where stuff is anchored in.
Hmm.
And so This is better than example. I had someone recently, the other day.
The other day. Could have been 3 years ago. We don't know.
She had a list of like 13 fears she wanted to address. The one I remember was a fear of driving over bridges, but it was only ones where she couldn't see the other side. I was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Within 30 seconds, we were back when she was 5 years old. Her parents were getting divorced. She didn't know what was going to happen there. And this fear of the unknown, because it was so baked in at such a foundational level, it was now this. So by addressing one thing, all the fears went away. And all we did was address one thing that was seemingly unrelated. But it's kind of like pulling out the bottom piece in Jenga. All the other pieces can fall away when you get to the root cause. So,
Yeah.
That's
And there's so many
fascinating.
different ways. Go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I think it's all so fascinating. What I've learned too is that healing is healing. Because you're calling it quantum healing, or you're calling it Reiki, or you're calling it shamanic practicing, and whatever else skills you're using. I've noticed that in all the stuff that I've done, and now I'm into shamanic practitioner stuff, all of those things intertwine and they help you do a better job at the end of the day. But I don't think that there's only one thing that is the end all be all, because
No.
I think healing is healing. When you have the intention to put forth and to help somebody with their issues, it's the love and the devotion and the intention behind all of that. And whether you lay your hands on them or you pull their hair or, play music, it's the healing thing, your intention of all of it, that makes the huge difference. That's my
Absolutely.
opinion. It
I
maybe I'm
agree.
full of shit,
and there's
but
different times for different things. If you have a compound fracture, don't come see me.
Right.
Like,
I'm
Go
gonna
go
write that
see
down.
an orthopedist and get that set. Yeah, yeah. Definitely. I completely agree. If you're in a car accident and you need to go get a broken bone fixed, go get the broken bone fixed. You punctured a lung, go see a surgeon. Like take care of that stuff. I get that. Yeah.
Common sense.
and
It's
even
all about common
all the
sense.
other things support this. So even
Yeah.
like I've had people after they get done, they'll go have like a massage. Well, that really gets stuff moving and stuff flows even easier, and they can make those quicker shifts because they're hitting different like levels of healing. So
Mhm.
um,
Oh,
all different ways to like integrate things. So
yeah, I
I love it all. I mean, obviously I know what I know, and coming from like a background, of like I said, natural product chemistry. I was looking for like herbs and natural sources for like drugs and stuff like that. So kind of understand that level, and I think the real answer, the real power is going to be when we can combine these worlds. Of
Right.
I agree.
I
when these
agree.
people start talking to these people, and I think we're getting close to that. I actually gave a talk a couple months ago for Aurora, like the medical
Yeah.
facility Aurora,
Yeah.
and it was so cool because they were so receptive to a lot of these things, and I'm like, it was a day that I waited for.
Yeah.
They reached out to me to like give a talk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they found one of my old resumes, and I'm like, how am I going to explain this? And they're like, no, we want the you now, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So
Cool.
super nervous as I haven't kept up on the medical side of things, but like that's not what they wanted because they understand that part, and they wanted someone with a different perspective to share that with them. So
Well, and I think the
as long as
holistic
now.
perspective that you have is really helpful because, you go to doctors or like medical systems, say Aurora, I mean, that's the one I go to. It's so segmented, like there's a
Siloed.
specialist for this and a specialist for that and a specialist for
Yeah.
that and a specialist for that. And nobody crosses that boundary into anybody else's specialty, but a holistic approach to healing, I feel like is so much more helpful than just segmenting it out, you
Yeah.
know? And again, if you have a broken bone, go see an orthopedic surgeon, but or an orthopedist who can set a cast or whatever. And I get that part of it, but I think overall the underlying separateness of the healthcare system, and I'm using the term healthcare loosely, but it's so separate that like the cohesiveness and the healing isn't there in a
Yeah.
lot of
Right.
respects.
Well, and then
Yeah,
how often did you go see a doctor and they sat and listened to like your life story and what was going on in your life and
And
why
then,
is this happening in the first place? It's like, my medical perspective used to be like looking at you like a car. Well, what's broken? What needs to be fixed?
yep,
Like,
exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what
and
I'm getting at. Yeah.
yeah. And you're not a car. You're so much more complex than that. And sometimes it's even just people being heard. Sometimes I don't do anything. I listen to a person, them being able to express what they've held in. That's what they need for healing, and that was it. I'm like,
Yeah. I have done readings where people are like, oh my God, that was the best reading ever. I literally said 5 words in an hour. They did all the talking, they did all the processing, but man, that was a great reading.
that probably was.
It probably was. You got your answers. There you go. And it's like I am not attached to how they get the healing. I'm not attached
right.
to that at all. So, there are times when I'm doing energy healing on people while I'm doing a reading or whatever. It all works like that, but I primarily focus on readings these days. But yeah, it's really interesting because it all is so intertwined. There's no like real separateness in it. Mm.
Well, I think it's a great thing, Matt, that you were chosen to go to a place like Aurora and give a talk. And
I
beside that,
agree.
your name and energy is getting out there. And that's probably for me anyway, because I was at the medical college for 20 years. And back 20 years ago, when I was starting to do that, I was hiding doing
Yep.
it. And, because they were looking at me like, what is wrong with you? So I think it's a great thing that all of a sudden things are starting to come together. And it's good to know it's a very comforting feeling to know that things are progressing and that there may be some day where, remember when we had a general medicine person that would call up the pulmonologist and say what's going on in their lungs, or call up, the GI person, and the GI person says, hey, he's got this and that. And to bring all of those pieces together, and perhaps in the future, there just may be that time because you set the groundwork for this and you spilled over your knowledge, and you had some credibility of being in the science world, so they knew who you were to a certain extent, and you had some credibility within you, and now perhaps this is going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire world, and doctors are going to start calling energy people, and energy people are going to call doctors and say this is what's going on. And wouldn't that be a great world to live in?
That's what I envision.
Yeah.
And they talk about some of these things, they say alternative healing, and I'm like, no, complementary healing. Like
Yeah.
this pairs so well with what you're already doing. Why do they have to be separate? Like, I don't
Mm,
get that.
yeah,
I've had
Yeah.
people talk to their chemotherapy and tell it what to do in their body. They didn't get sick, their hair didn't fall out. They directed it in their body where it needed to go, and anything that wasn't for my highest good, they cleared just by telling their cells and directing it that way. I'm like, you
Yeah.
can work with these things. It's nothing's good or bad. It's like,
yeah.
uh,
I had
All
a
the
friend
egos.
at King Military Hospital in Tacoma, Washington, years ago when I still lived there, and I've been here 16, 17 years. So it was a long time ago, started a Reiki healing program in for veterans coming back from combat. And it was very successful, very successful. And I've heard of other hospitals where they are using things like energy healers, and they are as
Mhm.
a complementary reflexology, energy work, massage in hospitals.
Yeah,
It's no longer completely separate.
yeah.
I've seen a lot of progress in that. Like I said, I go to Aurora. That's the medical system that my insurance takes me into. But I look up on the app and they have like meditation classes and yoga classes and all kinds of stuff going on. So it's not as separate anymore as it used to be.
Yeah.
right.
So,
One of my classes back in the day was anatomy and physiology for the energetic healer, and it was done by a male advanced practitioner, and he was an APNP, and he was working at the VA and figured out how to code his healing sessions with the veterans that were at the VA center. So he was actually doing Reiki and other energy medicine facility, practicing
I
and
love
getting it
that.
paid for. Mhm.
Yeah. It
So it's
depends
been
on what
out
you
there.
call it. Yeah.
It is.
It
I
depends
think
on
it
what
goes
you call
under
it.
other therapies.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
any information about, how to bill, which
Hmm.
is one of those things that it's magic, it's like finding the needle in the haystack.
Yep. It is.
Anyway, this has been a great
Yeah.
discussion, Matt.
Yeah.
We could talk forever on several different topics. And I
Yeah.
feel like we've been going at this for almost an hour and hit on
Almost. Yeah.
27 different subjects. And hopefully we brought something home to our viewers rather than being confused because sometimes I am. So,
It's
And
okay.
if you take nothing more away from this, just know that your body's ability to heal is greater than anyone's permitted you to believe.
right.
You are powerful.
Exactly.
You can start doing this stuff today. A lot of the people that I work with, they're sick because of the stories they tell themselves. Like,
Yeah.
this negative self-talk, like you're making yourself sick. Tell yourself something different. It may hard to be
Yeah.
hard to believe at first, but like, you can start this process today.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
where are you going to be? Are you doing any classes or anything? You want to give our viewers someplace to go and something to look
um,
at?
the next thing that I have coming up is, oh yeah, we're doing an event in Okano, which is honoring all sacred relationships. So one of our friends that's part of the Menominee tribe has a bunch of he did like a bunch of Hopi training and teaching and stuff like that, and he's coming back from Texas, and we're getting together to do an offering there and talk about
Nice.
sacred relationships with the breath, with nature, with our inner selves, and then obviously with sacred relationships and partners. And he's going to be doing a pipe ceremony at the end of that, and it's just going to be a community event. And then we also have a retreat coming up, me and my partner Whitney, at Golden Light Healing. It's just a weekend retreat. It's a deep healing and integration. Just a deep dive into healing. If you want to tiptoe around your stuff, this probably isn't the place to be. But if you're ready for a major shift in your life, it's a really powerful place to be and a really cool community to be a part of. So, really looking forward to that. It's probably one of my favorite ones to do. And
Right.
yeah,
So
That's
where can people
excellent.
find you? Do you have a website?
yeah. So mattschmidtqh.com. And then I have all of my events listed there. In addition to my events, I also have a list of all the wellness and psychic spiritual affairs in the state of Wisconsin listed there.
Mm,
I kept missing everything, so I think I have usually like 80 or 90 listed for the year just in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
So
there's a bunch of them. Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't find them. It took me years to find ones that were right down the road. Or
right.
so I started making a list and yeah, put it on there so people can
Nice.
find out what's.
Nice.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Who else, Christina?
I would like to put a couple of plugs in. Coming up, I believe it's May 11th or 12th, and this is off topic from what we've been talking about, but um, I am going to be at the CAPS Paranormal Convention in Appleton. It is Wisconsin Cryptids, Anomalies, and what is that? Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal. And that's in Appleton on May 9th, 10th, and 11th. So yeah, that's going on. And I really wanted to, I sponsored that one. So I'm a sponsor of that particular event. So I would like to promote that particular event. A lot of really good speakers. I will be there doing readings, doing psychic readings that weekend. And there's a lot of fun stuff going on. There's going to be a Bigfoot walk in the woods. There's going to be, I think that particular part of the event is sold out. But you can go to the CAPS website at I think it's wisconsincaps.com, CAPS.com,
Okay.
and get all the information for that. So I wanted to put a plug in for that one. So
Oh, very good.
yeah.
Well, so one more thing about Matt's weekend of his retreats and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how many people know of Golden Light Healing, but it is a phenomenal retreat center where there is lodging, and it is a very special place. And there's some nice wooded areas around there to explore as well, and some water and a lot of wildlife and whatnot. So it's a very special place for healing. So I'm excited for you, Matt. You do some great work, and thank you so much for coming to our show tonight, today,
Thank you.
tomorrow, you know.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Thanks for having me on.
All right, everybody. Thank you. And we will see you next time on Breakfast with Bobby.
Thanks, everyone.